What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. Hope you have been well, talking Major League Baseball today. But first, a huge thank you to everyone who tapped into my Olympic coverage. In addition to bringing Coach Johnson on here a couple of times, I also wrote a daily watch guide called Screenshots on my blog, The Show Notes. This very well could be news to you because I did a terrible job of promoting it, but if you liked it, or maybe you're upset you didn't get a chance to check it out due to my marketing skills, I am happy to announce it will continue as a weekly sporting event watch guide. There will be a link down below in the literal show notes wherever you watch or listen. Check it out. Subscribe if you would like it sent straight to your inbox. It's free, but this would also help me secure sponsors, so I would greatly appreciate it. Y'all already do a fantastic job of supporting me and sharing my stuff, so I know all this goes without saying. It should be up and running by the end of August, getting some tweaks done now, so we are good to go when I am ready and when you're ready and for college football season. All right, let's get into it. While I was covering the Olympics, it felt like the sports world stopped just for that, but baseball was still happening, and I have absolutely dropped the ball, pun intended, on my Major League Baseball coverage this season. I went on at the plate with Danny Foxworth for a season preview with a star-studded crew, but that was it. This hit me, pun partially intended, when listening to Danny's third podcast, Growing Up Low Country. Go check it out. So I want to revisit the predictions I made on his MLB preview to see how right or wrong I was and explain why, so we can get ready for the stretch run here during the last quarter of the season. We're going to go division by division, starting with the AL East. I thought the Orioles would win this one. Their pitching rotation was a weaker point for them last season when they surprised everyone to win the division, but they brought in former Cy Young winner Corbin Burnes, and Grayson Rodriguez was expected to take a step forward according to my notes before the season started at least. My other concern for them was also pitching related, with closer Felix Bautista being injured, so they had to turn to Craig Kimbrell, who will take you on an emotional roller coaster. But I thought the improved starting pitching along with all of their bats would carry them. They have last year's AL Rookie of the Year, Gunnar Henderson. Catcher Adley Rutschman is one of the best in the game already, and I figured Jackson Holliday would play a big role at some point. So was I right? Incredibly, kinda. We are still on track for this to happen. They are just behind the Yankees at the time of this recording, and it's so close that I have to say at the time of this recording. And while I know we were counting, hoping, praying for another down year for the Yankees, it is what it is. I mean, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto in particular have been insane for them, but most of my Orioles predictions have been spot on. Burnes appears headed to finish second in the AL Cy Young race. Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson have also been as good as I thought they were going to be. Kimbrell has been Kimbrell, but no surprise there. And Jackson Holliday has not had any real impact yet, but generally I'm feeling pretty good about this pick, at least to this point. Moving forward is where I'm concerned. Grayson Rodriguez was making me look smart too, but he's hurt. He's supposed to come back, but every missed start in a race this close counts. Their rotation is also without Kyle Bradish, who had Tommy John surgery in June. He was fourth in Cy Young voting last year. So we're basically right back to square one with the questions we had at the beginning of the season. Can their starting rotation do enough to win games? Can their hitters do enough to provide them with the run support to win games? At this point of the season, you'd like to have those questions answered, but that's baseball. Next up, the AL Central, where I picked the Minnesota Twins. This one got off to a hilarious start because one of my talking points for the preview was how they won it last year with Brian Buxton and Royce Lewis being hurt. And while Buxton is hurt a lot, we have no reason to believe Lewis is injury prone, so him being in the lineup full time will be great for their chances this season. We recorded the preview episode on opening day, and I'm watching the Twins to see how smart I am. Lewis comes out and he homers. I'm a genius. I'm celebrating my genius for all of 3 innings. Before we even got to log into the Zoom, he'd already gotten hurt running the bases. He ended up missing like 2 months. He's played in about a third of their games so far. So yeah, not a great start. And of course, Buxton has missed time as well. But whenever they do make it on the field, they have been good. And I'm not in terrible shape with this pick. They're currently second, just a handful of games back. Very similar to last season where they've had to grind through all kinds of injuries. By the time you hear this, they will have played in 124 games. Only 3 players have cracked the 100 game mark for them. So yeah, Cal Ripken Jr.'s record's safe from them, yet here they are. Can they come back and make a push to win the division and make me look as smart as I felt the first 3 innings of the season? They are behind the Cleveland Guardians, who have been awesome. Jose Ramirez is one of the most underrated guys in baseball. He looks like he's headed for his 7th top 10 finish in MVP voting and career highs in homers, RBIs, and stolen bases. Their bullpen is lights out. They lead the league in bullpen ERA by about half a run. Their closer, Emmanuel Clase, has been the best in baseball as of right now. 37 saves to just 3 blown saves, 0.64 ERA, 0.66 whip, and a 156 batting average against them this season. While their starting rotation isn't exactly the Braves of the 90s, it's at least equal to what the Twins have. The Guardians just don't give up runs. It's hard to bet against a team like that, so I might just have to take the L here. But again, I accepted that inning 4 of game 1. Heading out to the AL West. This has been a wild ride. My pick was the Houston Astros because they are the Michael Myers of Major League Baseball. They are currently in first, but they took a while to get here. They were 10 games back as recently as the middle of June before they did what they always do. Their starting rotation is another one that's kind of cobbled together, but they finally found their footing despite Justin Verlander injury problems. Framber Valdez has been a quality starter for a couple seasons now, and he's looking good. Ronel Blanco has taken a big step forward, and Hunter Brown has turned around an absolutely awful start to at least be serviceable. It's helped ease the burden on the starters that the bullpen has been one of the better ones in the majors. They brought in Josh Hader as a closer. He's been as good as expected. And there are other guys to make it to where the starters just have to make it to like the 6th inning. And of course, the bats are still the bats. Bregman, Altuve, Pena, Diaz, Alvarez. Sadly for everyone except our friend KP, the list goes on and on. That's exactly why I picked him, and I expect it to continue. I did think that the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers and the Seattle Mariners would contend as well. The Rangers are now a ways back in third. They've had a rough season. We haven't had a repeat World Series champion since 2000 because it's hard to do. The big thing for them is they just don't look like the same team offensively. They're scoring like a run and a quarter less per game than they did last year. Unfortunately, that's just how things go. Now, the Mariners are still in it, though, in spite of their own struggles scoring runs, because it turns out you don't have to score as many runs when you don't give up a lot of runs to the other team. They have the best team ERA in Major League Baseball by a significant margin. They feel like a great candidate for one of those teams we see every year that will either continue on their downslide, the same one that's cost them a double-digit division lead, or they'll get things together just enough to make the playoffs before somehow getting hot and winning the World Series. They can win games without scoring runs. They've shown that. Can they win enough of them? If they do, how does that look in the playoffs when every team is struggling to score? It's hard to imagine them being much worse offensively, but again, I'm liking my Astros pick still because they're always there. All right, over to the National League, starting with the NL East. I picked the Atlanta Braves headed into the season. Made sense at the time, kind of seemed like a no-brainer. Last year's NL MVP and one of the most exciting players in baseball, Ronald Acuna Jr., 20-win pitcher who led the NL in strikeouts, and Spencer Strider. What could go wrong? Well, we didn't even make it out of April before Strider went down with a season-ending elbow injury, and then Acuna tore his ACL in May. Amazingly, this team has held it together somewhat to remain in second. They're being led by amateur seamstress Chris Sale and Marcell Ozuna, who's contending for a triple crown, but yuck. We had such high hopes for him, but the Phillies have taken full advantage. They are comfortably in first place at the moment. Their red flag is their bullpen, second best team ERA in the majors for starting pitchers, but their reliever ERA is mediocre at best. Good news for Phillies fans, this is basically the formula the Rangers used last year. Now, while I don't believe the Phillies can be caught based on what we've seen from the rest of the division, they have been significantly worse in the second half of the season so far. They have some breathing room to figure things out, but I'm sure the goal is a World Series, and even as random as baseball is, I can't imagine it's random enough to save them with the way they've been playing. Moving right along, I thought the NL Central was going to be a tight one between the Reds, Cardinals, and Cubs, with the Reds coming out on top behind guys like Elly De La Cruz, and Elly has had a great season, leading the majors in steals by a Ricky Henderson-type margin. I was right that it would be a tight one between the Cards, Cubs, and Reds. Unfortunately, that's the race for second, as the Brewers have a sizable lead in the division. I'm starting to notice a pattern when it comes to good teams. I know baseball is the OG analytics sport, so this is perfect for true baseball fans. Okay, stick with me here. What I have found is that the Brewers are above league average in scoring runs, while also being one of the best in the majors at not giving up runs. This seems to be true for most of the good teams we've talked about. As a manager, I would tell my guys to go score runs and stop the other team from scoring runs. Moneyball 2 coming soon. Wilson Contreras, Willy Adames, and Jackson Chourio help them out in the run scoring portion of all this. Contreras is one of the best hitting catchers in the game. The not giving up runs portion is a bit more interesting. So they have the second best bullpen ERA in the majors, which is obviously good, but someone has to start the game, and they seem to have only 2.5 starting pitchers. Now, those pitchers are middle of the pack in terms of ERA, so they've made it work, but it's bizarre. I don't think I've seen it before. I also don't know what it means for the rest of the season and the postseason. They're finding starters who are effective and they're making it work. As a result, their rotation has pitched the fewest innings in the majors. A well-rested starting rotation is usually a good thing. But again, someone has to pitch, and sure enough, they are second in the majors in bullpen innings. A tired bullpen is a bad thing, so which piece of conventional wisdom wins out in the end? Their lead is so big, and they've looked good enough recently, that I can't imagine them not winning the division at the end of the day, but I am a little scared, and I'm trying to figure out the casting for Moneyball 2. Speaking of things that scare me, let's finish up with the NL West. For those of you who don't know or can't see my shirt, I'm a Dodgers fan. I picked them to win the division. This is just what the Dodgers do, but there's even more room for optimism when you bring on Shohei Ohtani and Tyler Glasnow, and they are currently first in the NL West. But what an absolutely terrible way to get there. They've lost more days to the injured list than any other team this season. That includes last year's MVP runner-up and my prediction to win it this year, Mookie Betts. He just came back after being out since the middle of June with a hand injury after getting hit by a pitch. The starting rotation has had it even worse. Rookie pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto looked like he had figured things out before he went down with his own mid-June injury. Walker Buehler has gone down twice this season just by himself. Clayton Kershaw didn't even make his first start until the last week of July. What's crazy is despite all this, the team ERA is actually really good. When you break it down between starters and relievers, it remains really good on both sides. Even crazier, while their division lead is only a couple of games over the D-backs and Padres, I still feel really optimistic about them winning it again. Like I said, Mookie just came back, and that was kind of a fluke injury. Buehler's back for however long he's back. Kershaw is finally here. Yamamoto wants to come back from everything I've read, so hopefully they let him. They also brought in Jack Flaherty from the Tigers. If you aren't getting Skubal, Flaherty's a good second choice from them. Skubal, I don't know. You know who I'm talking about. Tariq. Most importantly, Shohei looks like he's worth every penny they're going to pay him in 2075. He's lighting it up to keep my NL MVP pick in-house at least. He has a chance to become the first player ever to join the 50-50 club. When you think you've seen it all from him, he does something even wilder. Very happy it was the Shark Tank guy on that plane going to Toronto. And to go through all they've gone through and still be 20 games over 500 is very impressive, and you would have to think things can't get worse than what they've been. They also fit my score a lot of runs but don't give up a lot of runs criteria for good teams. Compare that to the D-backs, who are right on their heels. They score a ton of runs, more than any other team. They also give up more runs than any other team. The Padres do fit the criteria, but they are the Padres. So, there you have it. I don't feel like my preseason picks aged too terribly, and we're set up for a pretty good finish to the regular season. So this has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. Appreciate you watching, listening, rating, subscribing, reviewing, and sharing. Don't forget to check out my blog, the show notes, where you can find screenshots. The link is down below in the literal show notes. I will catch you later.